This is my country, my damn country. Give me my country, you can keep the rest. This is my country, my damn country. And it don't mean a thing if it don't pass the test. If you ain't never cheated or been cheated on, then take off your boots, you rhinestone frog.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, veterans, and all you beautiful people that support and love us veterans. Hey, this is your Monday mandatory motivation here on Heart of Volunteer Veterans Podcast. It's Monday, folks, start of your work week. If you're looking for a new career or if teaching is a long-held passion, then this is the episode you need to hear. Our veteran co-host was an infantry officer, one of my commanders. He's going to dump out his kit bag with actionable knowledge, tools, and resources to help you figure it out. Stick with us, folks. We have the one, the only, Will O'Brien. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to Heart of Volunteer Veterans Podcast, the one, the only, Will O'Brien. OB, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I'm glad we finally found something on both our calendars and got together and finally came up with something to talk about. And yeah, excited. I think we can do some good today, hopefully.
Dude, absolutely. And here's the thing, man. It's like you're doing an excellent job as the co-host. Like we're sitting across from each other face to face. And it seems like we should have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
It feels, it really is natural. Of course, we've been friends for, a long time. Yeah, I was one of your guys.
Yeah.
You directed me like a beast on the battlefield. Thank you very much.
Held onto your chain most of the time.
Right. And, yeah, we've always had good conversations, intellectual conversations, which I've always enjoyed. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I still think back. It was a joke, I gave all the platoon leaders books to read, history books to read, and everything else. I'm like, all right, rather than playing Xbox, sit in your freaking tent. It's like professionally develop yourself. And not a single one of them read any of them. And then you read all of them. You took your platoon leaders' books and read all the books, and then show up, hey, you got any more books to read? And I'm like, all right, I'm getting through somebody at least. So.
You influenced me, and got me started, kicked me off, motivated me some more.
Well, we feed each other, man. Keep each other going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing, Will, is like it doesn't end, with service. I mean, it's if you have the outlet where you have to be, I wouldn't say influencing people, but training people, getting people ready for what's to come, whatever that may be, is something that you've continued to do.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. When you first start doing this podcast, we were bouncing ideas. I was the wall sometimes, and I got to thinking. I'm like, what is this about? And one thing was kind of like the old Sesame Street song. Who are the people in your neighborhood? And it's like, okay,
right?
Who are the veterans in your neighborhood?
Yeah,
because we're out there. And we can smell each other, and, it's always funny. You go to the Walmart parking lot or the Lowe's parking lot, and, all the veterans are, like, psychologically, subliminally parking next to each other. So there'll be, like, a cluster of, veteran plates in one area. The rest of the lot, that's them. But, the vets are all parked in the same spot, and, it's there. So, especially nowadays, guys are transitioning out and whatever else. And one of the sad things is you get out there and you realize nobody else knows the war's going on unless they have a personal connection to someone.
Right.
So then, that comes with all its own challenges. But what you do next, I think, really has a lot to do with your own personal health and, your family's health and, your wellness is feeling like you're doing something. Because, that's a challenge for all of us. You're like, okay, I gave, best years of my life. And I'm like, all right, what's next?
Well, I think the big thing is try to find that place that you fit in, the thing that has like that, the intrinsic, internal motivation that you do it and it drives you to do, more and to level up, to be, be a better person. But you have to find that, that thing that drives you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, I tell the kids at school, I say, you know what? The military provides a lot of direction. Either you love it, you stay, and you thrive, or you hate it so much it becomes crystal clear to you what you want to do in life that is not the military.
Right.
But either way, you're getting something out of it. And the nice thing about the domestic world is you don't have to forcibly put yourself in a situation where the first word out of your mouth when you put your feet on the floor in the morning is the F-bomb.
Right.
And, if you catch yourself, if you are waking up and doing that and dreading going to work and hating life and whatever else, well, guess what? Get yourself squared away, do something else. Right. Use that GI Bill that's sitting on the shelf.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of programs out there, a lot of stuff, and a lot of opportunities, to continue to serve one way or another. And for me, teaching is filling that need for me.
And the thing is, Will, there are a lot of veterans out there. They don't see it, I don't think. But if you ever look out there, I don't know how many times I looked out and saw, young NCOs, training their soldiers. But it wasn't just like, high crawl, low crawl, they were giving classes and breaking it down and giving them, deeper knowledge into, what it meant to do the job. Yeah.
And, you don't have to have been in a huge, you say, oh, well, I was the godfather of the E4 Mafia, man. I wasn't leading anybody, or I was the godfather of the Warrant Officer Mafia. Shout out to Ryan Bomar. I wasn't leading anybody. And, actually just last week, one of my former students, taught her sister, taught her, good family, coached them. She's been out of high school for, I don't know, I think about 4 years now, but got married to an Army guy. Mm-hmm. He was a tanker, but we'll be okay with that.
He's stable. Yeah.
But he got out and they moved back home, and she just hit me up and she said, hey, Will, he's got his GI Bill. He's working at Geek Squad and he's miserable.
Yeah.
And, but we don't know how to get him back into the school mode or whatever else. And he did. He sat, not the table we're sitting at right now, but the table on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
And said, hey, I was E4. I wasn't leading anything. And I said, guess what, man? In the domestic world, you're a leader already.
Absolutely.
You know how to get stuff done. If nothing else, even if you had a horrible military experience, you know what toxic leadership looks like. Mm-hmm. You know what wrong looks like. You know what, hey, the day I'm in charge, I'm not going to do that.
Absolutely.
And, by nature of being a veteran, even if you think, hey, I'm totally undisciplined, my wife tells me I'm a slob. We might have heard that this morning after poor decisions last night.
Yeah.
It's things you take for granted. Hey, show up on time.
Right.
Be sober. Work your shift. Stuff like that. That is not the status quo out there in the world.
Right.
So that even if you don't think you got it, you got it. And people that have been around in your field for a while will tell you. I can tell you're a veteran when you walk in. You're like, what are you talking about? The way you walk and
carry yourself,
and take notes and, actually get things done.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is when a veteran shows up, pulls out a pen and a scratch of paper, and somebody's like, what's this guy doing?
Yeah. And I started working, and somebody said, hey, I need you to crunch all this data or whatever. And I'm like, okay. I've got my PowerPoint Ranger tab, and I was like, all right. So I sat down and freaking knocked it out on some Excel and brought it back. I was like, here you go. And they're like, what's that? And I go, well, you said crunch this data. And they're like, last guy I gave that to took like 2 weeks to do it. And I'm like, he's like, you can't be done. And I'm like, not that much to it. Yeah. But, when you got a couple stars breathing down your neck, if the ITs go fail during the bub or something like that, you figure out how to use computers real quick. Yeah. Yep. And all of a sudden, you're the AV guy. You're like, do you have professional training in this? I'm like, I have professional training at being threatened to be violated in a bad way if the PowerPoint didn't work, or, or the VTC didn't work, or whatever.
I think you're absolutely right, Will, about the when a veteran comes out. I mean, we've seen it. E4 is leading fire teams in in contact.
Yeah,
and they're making the right calls. Yeah. And they're, they say something, and their soldiers, their Marines, they're reacting.
Yeah.
And following their direction. I do think the thing is once we remove from that situation, because it looks so foreign to the world we live in now. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you can, we talk about repurpose on the show. Take that leadership and repurpose it to somewhere else, like pull it out of the environment. Of course, you have to understand that environment first, which is what we're kind of building on the show too, is that understanding of the combat environment. So you can apply, smartly those skills.
Oh, absolutely.
In veteran life.
Yeah. And then, if you sit there and just try to distill it into one thing, why'd everybody join? Protect the country. Those words aren't going to come out of everybody's mouth. But when I say that, everybody's like, yeah. I want to, fight evil, save America, save the country. And the phrase that I've kind of developed in my head over the years when people say, hey, why'd you go into teaching? Well, there's a lot of reasons. But the military saves the country from the outside. Mm-hmm. And teachers do their damnedest to try to save the country from the inside.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you're still out there, fighting the forces of evil and, keeping the American way going. But you're doing it from the inside now.
With knowledge.
Yeah. And you're on the front lines. And you're when you go to teacher school, they ask you, what's the purpose of education? And there's all these theories on what the purpose of education is. And the two that I always latched onto was, one, trained labor. People don't like to talk about that, but before we had the Department of Education, oversight of education in America at the national government level fell under the Department of Labor. And you get to thinking, what am I getting educated for? Work. And then the second part of it is to provide an educated citizenry. And, we got to educate the citizens on what's going on. We get all these public figures that are disconnected, from people on the street and the impacts on them. Well, they got that way because somebody allowed them to just go through life without applying critical thinking, without understanding the impacts of actions and right. Stuff like that. So,
no, I like that, man. Getting back into school, after being away from it for so long, having that, good professors, guiding you.
Yeah.
And I can look back, when I was younger in school. I mean, it was a long time ago, but definitely the teachers that impacted me, that got me, where I am now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
important. I think everybody's, can probably name two or three that, they connected with, hopefully, if they're lucky. And they'll be like, okay, hey, those were the ones that watched out for me. Those were the ones that kicked me in the ass when I needed it. Those were the ones that kept me out of jail,
Right.
And, that literally, it's like, okay, but if you can turn around and use your life experiences, use your military experience so that some kid doesn't have to, fight the battles of discovery learning that
right.
that you had to fight. You feel pretty good about that.
Right. How does how does a veteran get into that, man? How does that even? What's the start of that? Can we talk about that process?
Yeah. And when you brought that idea up about hey, come on, talk about being a teacher or whatever, I said, you know what, this is great because a lot of our peers, are getting ready to retire, looking for that second career.
Yeah.
And then, for all the goods and bads of social media, guys are reaching out and they're like, hey, OB, I think I want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been teaching a few years now. What's it like on the outside? What's it like on the inside, teaching or whatever? How I go about doing this?
On the inside. That's
Yeah.
funny.
And, this is a perfect forum for getting into that. So, and then you kind of push the issue on, hey, let's do an episode. And it forced me to finally, write some thoughts down and get knocked out. So I guess we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it, man. This is good information, man. We talked about this, yesterday, but I mean, man, this is going to be game changer for those that are that they're already leaning in this direction.
Yeah, I hope so. And you don't have to be a lifer and switch into a second career. You can just be doing your enlistment. Hey, got that GI Bill. Want to be a teacher. So I think hopefully this can apply to a lot of guys and gals that are looking to switch over. So the first thing I wrote down when I was, thinking deep thoughts here was, I think I want to be a teacher, but I'm not sure it's right for me. Let me tell you right now, if you think you want to be a teacher, you're probably good to be a teacher.
Right.
Because people that aren't cut out to be teachers, they don't sit around and go, I'm going to be a teacher. No, they're not even thinking about being a teacher. If you're even thinking about being a teacher, it's probably right for you.
Yeah.
The other thing that, I was fortunate with, but it got sketchy in the beginning. I'm going into my 8th year teaching now. It's amazing how fast, time flies. And then think about, you and me running around in the woods or in the mountains or whatever else like it was yesterday. And then I'm like, oh, man, that was almost 20 years ago now. All right, we don't speak of that.
Right.
But before you go into either an academic environment to use that GI Bill, or go into a classroom teaching, you got to have your PTSD managed. Not everybody's got PTSD. We know that. It's different strokes for different folks. I think you and I are both out of the closet with, our stuff. And, we have different techniques for managing ourselves, but both of us are pretty good. And you got to get that managed. And if that means you got to take, 6 months, a year, right when you get out to, go to group, go to the VA, get some meds if that's your track, figure out what your triggers out there in the world are, because
triggers are big.
Oh, yeah, they're huge. And unfortunately, you're not going to realize you have them until you go back to the world and you're socially isolated.
Yeah, in the wrong place at the wrong time when it happens.
Yeah, and then you're standing in line at the grocery store and there's some old lady writing a paper check in front of you and balancing her checkbook. And all of a sudden you start having an aneurysm in the checkout line and you're like, and you got to realize, okay, I feel it coming on. Okay, this is obviously a trigger for me.
Right.
Yeah, but you didn't know you had that until you got out in the world and you saw that. But, it can be done. You can have PTSD and be a successful teacher.
Yeah.
But, you got to get out there and you got to find that support network. You got to find, that self-management thing before you try to go in there. Because going in, if you're going to go to teacher school, you and I both struggled. Focus.
Right.
Focus. And it's not lack of will. It's not lack of skill. It's just, shiny things all over the place.
Right.
And, in fact, I never would have finished my master's thesis in history if I hadn't had vet, Bobby Wintermute, as my thesis advisor, saving my ass, giving me extension after extension. And then I don't even go back and look at it now because I'm like, this is absolutely horrible. This is a disgusting piece of crap, But I had, I just got home. I just got out.
Yeah.
freaking wasn't sleeping and everything else. And I guess my symptoms were pretty acute then. Right. So either way, we've had a few guys, because vets congregate.
Oh yeah,
and especially in teaching, contract says you're going to be there at 8:05. There's a group that rolls in at 8:03. And then the vets and the junior ROTC instructors are all sitting there drinking coffee at 6:30 in the morning.
Right. Waiting for something to happen.
Waiting for something to happen, reading the news, BSing or whatever else. And, I felt for our colonel that runs the junior ROTC things, because he kept trying to get these NCOs, and he'd get these good NCOs in that retired and hooked up for junior ROTC. And a couple of them, they weren't ready. They didn't have their PTSD right.
Right.
And
made it worse.
Yeah, and they had to check out. I was like, man, and it was a not check out in a bad way, but
right.
Realize, hey,
I'm not in that game.
Yeah, I'm not in a spot where I can be in a classroom right now with kids. And so anyway, you got to kind of do a self-assessment. And then first self-assessment is, can I handle going back to school?
Yeah.
Teacher school or whatever. And then by the time you get through that, you're probably good. You're probably good to go to a classroom.
Right.
But maybe you've already got your teaching credentials and, because you actually majored in it versus coming to it, later in life or whatever. But you got to self-assess there. Hey, am I good to go to a classroom?
Yeah.
Because, even kids on their best day, something's going to trigger you.
Right.
Yeah. And you got to have a way to do that. So anyhow, just wanted to get that out of the way up front, because I think that is probably the thing. Everybody says, yeah. But, some people just need to hear it directly,
Yeah. Well, I do know this, Will. It's like, when I first got out, the first job that I had, I probably should have been fired within the first month. I was the shop foreman at a pretty good sized farm.
Yeah.
And I was running it like it was the military.
Oh yeah.
And since people couldn't get on my system, I treated them like privates.
Yeah.
And tried to bend them to my will.
Yeah.
And the thing is, these people have no vested interest in what's going on.
No.
It's just a farm. They don't own the equipment. So for them, they're just like, I quit. People were quitting. And, some dude put his, I had like an area designated for incoming supplies.
Yeah.
Repair parts for tractors so we could keep the farm going. And some clown kept putting his lunch on this shelf. And they come back in, and I see the lunchbox like right in the morning. I grab it and I set it where it's supposed to go. He grabs it and puts it back on there.
Oh!
I take it and sling it across the whole shop, and it explodes. And this guy, he wanted to get crazy, and he got lucky. There was a couple of people that like high school kids that were working there that understood who I was, because I went to school there.
Yeah, you're the hometown hero.
And I don't know about the hero.
Yeah, all right.
Partly hero, but they were kind of like, well, you don't want to get into this, man. You don't even understand English. You don't want to get into this.
Yeah.
And but I should have because I brought his organization down with the kind of leadership style I was bringing in. But the thing is, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I was only ready to work on a ranch by myself with cattle.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And like you said, you came home familiar.
Yeah.
Something that was simple for you to digest, and then you branched out from there. But you have to handle it, because you can't make it out there without it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to find that support network, wherever it is. And, the bottom of a bottle doesn't count as a support network.
Right. Right.
Just to say that too.
Yeah. Hey folks, just so everyone's tracking, we're at like 23 minutes right now. If this episode goes over 45, I know that's kind of like the mark on the wall that we put up there. If this goes longer, just keep listening. Don't even worry. We're when OB comes on and co-hosts, we roll until it's done.
Hey, I'm trying to share the knowledge in a freaking organized way, but it may be a Technicolor pool on the table by the time it gets all vomited out. But
I think the big key, man, is connecting with the stories. There has to be a process to get to certain points, and I think that's the way we understand the process.
Yeah.
So you painting the picture, man, is it's going to make bold changes for folks, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, we're literally sitting down at the table here, and hopefully, I'm talking like maybe this applies to you. Maybe you're thinking about going to be a teacher, and it'd be like if we were sitting down and talking. So anyway, how do you get to be a teacher? Well, let me put it this way. I teach at a public high school in an urban environment. So I'm going to talk to you from the lens of my experiences. Is this everybody's experience? No. Just like vets, everybody has their own experience.
I think the thing you're going to talk about something that has the most effect, though.
I hope so. I hope so, because I want to see people set up for success.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let somebody fail if I can help it.
Right.
And so anyway, the first thing that I would say, okay, you're getting out, want to be a teacher. First thing is think about where you want to teach. And I'm not talking city, country. I'm talking geographically in the country. Where do you want to teach? Because the reason I say that, and, this is something I stumbled through on my own, is you want to go to school in the region, hopefully the city, if you're looking at teaching in a city, that you want to teach in. If you want to teach in Chicago, go to school, for teacher school in Chicago. If you want to teach in Kansas City, go to school in Kansas City.
Networking.
Yeah, because, teaching, it is networking. Because if you're going to school where you want to teach, you've been out there as a student teacher.
Right.
People know you. The university professors, they're wired with all the principals and everybody else, the feeding and whatever else.
Pipeline.
Yeah. And I went to teacher school at, University of Arizona because that's where I was at that point in my life. Then got divorced, moved back to Kansas City. Hey, I'm a application in a pile of applications, And really the way I got hired was a funny story, but I mean, 20-some school districts in the metro area, I applied to every single one of them and wasn't getting anything. And then one of my buddies from back home from college, his mom was the secretary for the principal at the school I'm at now.
Yeah.
And she put the word in. She goes, hey, my son's buddy from college says he's a good guy. He's got out of the Army, looking for a job. And he was like, man, I wasn't even thinking about filling that position. But, yeah, I got a job for him.
Yeah.
So literally, that was how I got my foot in the door. And if you think secretaries don't have power in education, you're wrong.
No, I know they do.
You got to respect the power base. They know where the bodies are buried and everything else. But so go to school in the geographic region or the metro area or wherever that you want to teach. And then that also, aside from the networking, it helps with your licensing.
Right.
Because if you go in one state and get, meet their requirements for a teacher license in that state, and you go to another state, they'd be like, oh, man, well, you didn't take these 3 classes that we require here.
Yeah.
Or whatever else, and all of a sudden you think you're done with teacher school, but then you're not because you got to get licensed in the new state that you're in.
So the state that you go to school in, they're going to make sure that your licensing matches the state that school's within to get you up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once you figure that out, I think the second thing you want to look at and kind of self-assess on is what grades do you want to teach?
Yeah.
Do you want to teach little kids? Some people truly have the heart for that. And even though we're all...
God bless them.
Yeah. We're all stone cold killers, out there in the military. There's a lot of successful transitions to, teaching little kids.
Yeah.
Some like middle school, some like high school, some like younger part of high school, some like the older part of high school.
Yeah. It really just kind of comes down to where you feel like you can do the most good, right? Like where you're
Well, you got to find the sweet spot.
Yeah.
You know, like I did my student teaching with 8th grade, and I loved it. Those kids were great. You know, they're just old enough that, you know, they're not calling you mom or dad by accident, you know. But the thing that frustrated me, though, is, you know, I realized that, you know, the development of their brains, I couldn't go to the depth level and the cool factor level and stuff, the critical thinking.
They weren't ready for it.
They weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say, oh, well, you know, the previous teachers didn't prepare them. No, they're just...
It's just that age.
Yeah. It's psychological development, you know, literal physical brain development or whatever. They weren't there. So that was where I realized, you know, high school, you know, is where I wanted to be. And I teach mostly juniors and seniors now, and that's my sweet spot. You know,
you know what's crazy is that's actually kind of your sweet spot when you were in the military, was around that age.
Yeah. And
where they're like the level of I hate to say it, like level of influence, but the thing is, if you're doing the right thing, influence is good.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect time to catch them because they're ready for the influence.
Yeah. And you know, you saying that just kind of triggered something that I did have on my list. That, let me go ahead and say it before I have a TBI moment or something.
Sweet.
But older high school kids are a lot like privates. They're about the same age as privates. A lot of these kids are going to graduate high school and go into the military, and they're going to be a private. But you got to remind yourself as a veteran teacher that they're not privates.
Right.
They're not privates. They're kids.
Yep.
Somebody else is going to turn them into a private, you know, but you're not that guy. You're wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
But they're not privates. And so, yes, you've got rapport with them. You're current on what 18-year-olds think about and what they do, you know, leaving the military and then going into teaching. But you just got to remind yourself, and it comes naturally after a while, but, you know, when you're first starting out teaching, you got to say, okay, I got my foot in the door on one side because I know what 18-year-olds are like right now, 17-year-olds are like right now, or whatever. Because I used to deal with privates all the time. I can deal with high school kids. They're still kids.
Yeah.
And anyhow, just wanted to say that at that point before I forgot about it. So figure out, okay, what grades do I think I want to teach?
Yeah.
And then when you go to, you know, I keep calling it teacher school, but yeah, that seems to be an accessible term for a lot of people.
Like Ranger School.
Yeah, exactly. You know, sleep deprivation, occasional starvation, you know. Yeah, it is like Ranger School, but
self-loathing. Yep.
Nobody's going to kill you and eat you, but
thank God for that.
Yeah, they may try, but a good university education program is going to put you in the classroom right away. Like your first semester, okay, hey, I'm in the education program now. Okay, first semester, boom. You're going out to do what's kind of like they call it observations. So that's like your first part of student teaching. And this isn't the student teacher you remember from school. You know, he comes in and he's the pretend teacher for a few weeks or whatever. No, this is observations. You say, okay, Chris, you say you want to teach 6th grade biology? Okay. And they send you out. They call up somebody they know. And they say, hey, can I send a student teacher out to do observations in your 6th grade biology class? A good program's going to do that. Mm-hmm. Because then all of a sudden you're going to be like, all right, dude, this is what you told me you thought you wanted to do.
Yeah.
How you feeling it? Yeah.
Right. Kind of a check.
Yeah. And you may get in that 6th grade biology room and go, I've made a horrible mistake.
Right.
You know, this is not it. This is not it. Maybe I want to teach high school chemistry instead, or, you know, I'll be a history teacher or whatever else. But like I said, you have that flexibility, and a good program, good mentors at a university sending you up for teaching. They're going to put you in there right away.
Yeah.
Before you're past the point of no return where you're getting certified in elementary ed and that is not your thing.
Right.
So that's something you should look for, you know, when you're looking at teacher school. Another thing I hear a lot of times, and you and I have talked about this, and, you know, Pete Farrell and I talked about it, you know, a few years back, is a lot of people say, hey, I just want to coach.
Yeah.
I just want to coach. And you don't have to be a teacher to coach.
Yeah.
You know, different states have different rules, but for the most part, as far as I understand it, and from knowing guys throughout the Midwest, and I know from our personal experience, you don't have to be a teacher to be a coach. So getting your foot in the door as a coach somewhere, you can get that fulfillment of working with kids, building minds, building bodies, you know, whatever else. But don't feel like if your motivation is to be a coach and you see teaching as a way to get there,
you don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that. Don't get into teaching if your heart's not in it, and coaching is, you know. And, you know, we were talking about earlier, I think Dan Alderman's doing that.
Yeah, he's a wrestling coach, crushing it out there.
Yeah, crushing it. Taking off his leg and beating some kids once in a while, too.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. But, you know, so know that. If you're sitting there, hey, I just want to be a coach, you don't have to be a teacher to be a coach.
Yeah.
You know, check the state regs, but where you're at but know that. So then, all right, so we figured out where we're going geographically, figured out where we're going to teacher school.
Yep.
And, you know, figure out, you know, what grades we think we want to teach.
Right.
So then subjects. In my experience, again, speaking my experience, most military guys and gals want to be a history teacher. You know, because I think if you were a professional in the military, regardless of your rank or, you know, job or whatever, you know, history is just so ingrained in the military culture. And if, God willing, you had some good leaders that got you reading and everything else, everybody's either going to be a history teacher or, you know, a gym teacher.
Right.
And, you know, I joke about when I tell people that, I said, hey, you know, it's part of the American educational experience that everybody had that one vet that was just a little bit off for either history or gym. And just like you did, they laugh and then they stop and think about it and they're like, yeah, Coach so-and-so, yeah. You know, and you and I grew up with the Vietnam vets raising us, you know, and the torch has been passed. It's like Mufasa, the circle of life. And,
right.
You know, now we're raising kids.
Yeah, my gym coach, Coach King, he was coach, gym coach. I mean, he was Army.
Yeah.
I remember seeing his old Army picture at his house one time because I was friends with his son.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of blew me away. You know, it's like, man, I got an Army guy training me, you know, teaching me. It's good, man. It's good.
And then, you know, like I said, I'm out, you know, especially in an urban school environment. A lot of those kids have dealt with a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm out of the closet with the PTSD. And then you just kind of spin that crazy vet thing a little bit. You know, end of the day, kids are getting loud. It's hot. The windows don't open. And you're like, hey, forgot to take my meds this morning. You guys getting my PTSD up. Start twitching your head a little bit. And you're like, oh.
Have you? I'm not going to ask if you flipped desks or anything, but
No. In the beginning, you know, you got to get your foot in the door. And in the beginning, I had, you know, that's the other thing. Let me say that. Gender-wise, you're a strong male teacher, you're going to get the kids that need a strong male teacher.
Right.
And, you know, I had a challenging population in a few classes. And, you know, my first year, and one time my vice principal came by to do an evaluation, and I was sitting on a chair in front of the door, keeping those fine young men in the classroom. And he walked by and he goes, you got all those guys in one class? I said, yeah. He's like, classroom management, excellent. He's like, you know, if you can successfully keep those guys in the classroom so that other people can actually teach and they're not running the doors or, you know, raising hell, disturbing other people's classes, he's like, excellent. And, you know, I was physically blocking the door, but hey, you know, come a long way since then, but, you know, discovery learning. But know that most military people, in my experience, gravitate towards being either a gym teacher or a history teacher. The problem with that on getting hired on as a teacher, though, is that there's not a lot of history teacher jobs out there. And there's not a lot of gym teacher jobs out there. And once those jobs come open, you got to kind of wait for, and they get filled, you got to wait for somebody to die, retire, or get fired. Because people don't walk away from a history teacher job. People don't walk away from a gym teacher job. And then you bring military people in as veteran teachers in those. And veterans, once we're out, we want to settle down. We like stability. We like consistency. And, you look at the grass is greener in our school district or in our school or something like that. And you're like, yeah, I can make a little more money there. But then you sit there and you say, you know what? I'm 10 minutes from the house. I like what I'm doing. Not a lot of history jobs out there. I teach history, by the way. And, I'm good. I'm good where I'm at. So where I'm going with this is if you want to get hired and you want to be a history teacher, know that not a lot of history jobs out there. So how you get hired? Well, again, you got that military skill set. You got a lot of skills out there. May not be your passion, but the more stuff you can get certified in, the more marketable you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it varies from state to state. Some states, you got to have a degree in that field to get certified. So, you actually have to have a history degree to be a history teacher. Some states. Other states, you just need to have teacher school and then pass the certification exam for that field to get licensed in.
Now, let me ask you a question about this certification. Is this like, when I think of teacher certification for history,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of everything I've learned in history that these high school kids, like +2 grades, are going to need to know, and that's what I'm being tested on. Is that right?
Dude, I'll tell you, I will honestly say I did well on the ACT, took a lot of military tests, took graduate exams. The history teacher certification exam was hands down the hardest test I ever took in my life.
Really?
Yeah. So if you are in that track and, you start getting those emails once you're in the education school and it's like, hey, study guide online for $40, spend that $40. Spend that $40. And, and then there's an essay component too. And you got to handwrite that sucker. So, I was printing because I've been a printer since I was in the Army because I always used to get mad when I couldn't read somebody's cursive because it was chicken scratch or whatever. So just know that there's going to be a writing component. And, like anything else, if you got problems with your hands from, getting blowed up or burned or something else, that's okay. There's accommodations.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
For everything. But I'll never forget, I took the hardest multiple choice test I ever took in my life. And then there was an essay part. And it said something like, explain the population migrations in the U.S. Sun Belt in the 1950s or something. I had no idea what I was talking about. No idea. So I was like, well, fake it till you make it. So I'm sitting there going, well, let's see. It was after World War II and had the GI Bill and a whole bunch of guys, were tired of sleeping on the ground everywhere. And they said they were never going to be cold again in their life. And then they had the VA housing loan. So they all said, hey, we're going to move to the southern United States where it's warm. And you had technological developments with air conditioning. I don't know. I made it up. But obviously it was good enough to get it done.
I was going to say, you're probably close to being almost absolutely right. I mean, you're looking at even people that came from the city, joined from the city, that they wanted their life quiet after that.
Well, yeah, the suburbs were created after World War II.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, when I actually got hired, it was to teach computer applications in business. Like I said, if you've been the slide boy for someone who may now be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, you know how to do PowerPoint. So I was like, well, I can do that. So I just went and took the certification test for business or whatever. Never really planned on being a business teacher, but it got my foot in the door.
Absolutely.
And then a guy had to leave teaching history, and then I slid right in. What jobs are always out there? Everybody needs math teachers.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a math teacher. If you can teach Algebra 1, you're going to find a job.
Okay.
Always need English teachers.
Yep.
And then...
hey, all you good NCOER writers out there, all my old squad leaders that learned it the hard way, you might be able to do this.
Yeah. So even if that's not your passion, you really want to be that gym teacher, you really want to be that history teacher. Start small, get your foot in the door, and something's going to open up.
Yeah.
And then the other way to do it too is if, be a sub.
Yeah.
Be a sub. And that might not be a bad thing either, because then you're working in different buildings, you're meeting different admins.
Getting a chance to maybe feel it out where you want to actually put your feet.
Yeah, feeling the culture in that building or that grade level or whatever. And same thing.
That's a good point.
Yeah, same thing. You don't even have to be done with teacher school to be a sub, know, and then again, that varies state to state too. But, subbing's a good way to, put some food on the table and then get your face out there. And then, the end of the school year comes and, Mr. Smith's go retire, and you're like, you know what? Chris has been there subbing. He's been in the building all the time. He's got a good relationship with the kids.
Yeah.
Hey, he wants that job. And you're like, well, I'm not even going to post it. I'm just hiring him, know. So know that the more marketable you can be, the more stuff you can get certified in, the better. So now you want to get hired. And a lot of people apply for a lot of jobs. Like I said, I'll keep going back to the history one, but, we had a position come open and had, we had like 50 applications. And you're sitting there and you're like, and the HR people nowadays, they have these computer things that, screen them or...
Right, rate them and all that.
Yeah, all that other stuff. But really, when it comes down to it, if you get an interview, you got a real good chance that you're going to get that job. Yeah, they're probably going to interview 3 people, but to even get to the point of having an in-person interview, unless something goes sideways real bad, you are just as competitive for that job with a high probability as, somebody else. So,
right.
So making the cut from paper to an interview, that's huge. But on the cut with the paper stuff, and, I've been involved. I've been the department head for a few years now, and I've been involved with, hiring new history teachers.
That's pretty awesome.
It is. It's just like the Army.
Yeah.
You get paid the same and work
Just harder.
Yeah. I get an extra period off, though, to do paperwork.
That's not bad.
Yeah. No, I like it. I feel like I can do some good there.
Yeah.
And every year in the department meeting, I go, anybody else want to, be a teacher leader and be department head next year? And they're like, nope, you're good, man. We're happy.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're happy with you running the show.
Yeah. But, good buddy of mine, my old roommate, we were roommates for years as lieutenants and captains, Jimbo. And Jimbo just retired, teacher school. He and I are having a lot of these same conversations. But resume time. Mm-hmm. And here's the deal with your military service. Okay? Don't go too hard on trying to explain everything. You're like, well, I got this many years of service. I got these deployments. I got, all this other stuff. And, the NCOER bullets like you were talking about. I had a property book of $1 million or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say nobody cares.
They don't understand it.
They don't understand it. And what's the relationship to the education field or the job you're applying to? So you say, okay, well, what am I going to put then, OB? Here, this would be my guidance as a guy that's looked at resumes is in a hiring situation. Is do this. Put your years of service, 97 to 13 or 2013. You know, U.S. Army, MOS, 11 Bravo, and then they don't, you know, the domestics aren't going to know what 11 Bravo is, so then parentheses next to it.
Infantry.
Yep. And then maybe, you know, deployments, you know, Afghanistan and Iraq. And why would that come into play? Well, if you got a multicultural school, which most public schools in the city in America now are very multicultural, you know, that shows that you know how to roll in different cultures.
Yeah.
And then after that, I would put just 2 bullets, you know, confirmation of military service and awards and decorations available upon request.
Yeah.
If they want it, they'll ask for it. And that's the other thing is, and this is something we keep going back to all the time, vets watch out for vets.
Yeah.
And if somebody's asking you about their military service at all, he's probably a vet.
Yeah.
And he may not be showing his hand right there, but he's low-key looking to hire you.
Now, do you turn it on from right there, or do you start to kind of introduce your, you know, military service jargon gradually, or do you just, as soon as you recognize this, if I recognize that my soon-to-be boss is a veteran,
Yeah.
I may open up the whole kit bag and just dump it out on the ground and just go full Monty on this guy. Well, or are we slower here? What's the deal?
I would say this is kind of how interviews go nowadays in the domestic world of education.
Listen up, folks.
The district HR department is going to have basically shell interview questions.
Right.
And these are going to be similar to the ones you're going to see on the computer. And it's like, you know, do you believe all students can learn? And, you know, things like that. Or, you know, how would you deal with this situation? That's kind of the baseline standard interview stuff.
Board questions.
Yeah. And you're going to sit there and go, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Board questions, folks.
And you're going to sit there and you're like, you know, this guy's supposed to be a teacher or vice principal and he's reading me this stuff word from word. He's not doing that because he wants to. He's doing it because HR tells him, hey,
it's a process.
Yeah, this is the process. Then once you get through the boilerplate questions, then it's going to go free form.
Yeah.
So if it goes free form, that's where he's going to say, oh, so you're in the Army, you know, huh? Or whatever. And, you know, they're going to open the door.
Right.
And be like, what'd you do? Or where were you at? Or, you know, things like that. And I'll tell you, especially in, you know, schools that have challenging socioeconomic conditions.
Right.
You know, you got kids that are growing up with some serious challenges. They're looking for vet. In fact, the guy that hired me said, I like hiring vets because I know you can handle the kids.
Yeah.
You know, you guys know how to work on a team. You understand the chain of command. You know, and there are some great, amazing educators out there that are first career teachers.
Yeah.
Amazing people. But second career teachers have, you know, a lot to offer too. And, you know, the other thing is the career teachers, sometimes, you know, education's very faddish.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, if you put this poster on the wall, freaking all the kids are going to get higher test scores all of a sudden because you put that poster on the wall. And you'll look around and you'll see people that have been there 20 years, the wailing and the gnashing of the teeth and everything else. They're like, another stupid poster to be on the wall because, you know, every 3 years they're like, we're going to change that poster and we're going to put this poster up and now the kids are going to get better test scores. And they will lose their mind about having to put that poster up on the wall in their classroom. Lose their mind. You and me were like, boss wants me to put a poster on the wall? Roger, where's the tape? You know?
Hey, everything helps.
Yeah. And you want me to put a different poster on the wall? Roger, you're my boss.
Yeah.
You know? I'm not going to, you know, try to circumvent or launch a revolution or file a union grievance or something about a poster on the wall. They're like,
I think the other thing with veterans too, and this isn't just Army. This is like Marines, Air Force. I mean, I've got a lot of buddies there. Ownership, man.
Oh yeah.
Ownership. Like when the boss says, You're going to do this. I don't know. I don't think I've ever come in front of guys and gals and told them the colonel wants us to do this.
Yeah.
No, it's like, hey, we're doing this, and take ownership as if it was your own. Of course, people hate you because they think that you came up with it.
Yeah,
but you take ownership, and I think, when you do have to do something that you're like, you don't fully understand, it's like, I get it, it's a poster, and it's supposed to raise grade scores. I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
But we'll go ahead and we'll give this a try because I don't know.
Yeah.
And so you do it. So,
well, and then the other thing that should be cognizant of that is that, and I think this probably goes for whatever field a vet goes into, even if it's not education, is that the domestics are going to look at you as a yes man. You're like, oh, he's a yes man. He's always doing what the boss wants. Well, guess what? That's how life works.
Yeah.
The guy's your boss for a reason, so that's not being a yes man. And if somebody calls you a yes man, you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, and you move out. But, there is a possibility for a perception of that, but don't sweat it.
I think the nice thing about, I don't think it's the yes man thing. It's like, hey, I've got to learn to get along here.
Yeah.
And then that, you saying yes, the question ends up coming back to you later. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then now you're not saying yes, you're actually actioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the E4 that becomes the E5, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Sergeant, what are we doing? And now it's on you.
Yeah.
I like that. It's because there's good progression there.
Yeah. So if they, hey, I'll get back to it. So if they do start asking about your military experience, nobody cares that you fixed 3 Apache engines in a day and nobody else did it, and you got an AAM. Hate to say it, but they don't. And what's that got to do with education and teaching kids? But where you do sell your military skills are the soft skills. My undergraduate was in business administration. Now, I remember I had to take this class called organizational culture, and a lot of teaching programs have kind of a equivalent type of class, and it may not be called that. But the whole purpose of it is you're taking a college class on how to get people with different socioeconomic, racial, cultural backgrounds to work together as a team.
Right.
Gee, have we ever seen that before?
Oh, yeah. The Grand Experiment.
Yeah. So even if you were, like I said, the godfather of the E4 Mafia, I'm pretty sure you've seen that before.
Oh, yeah.
And I think most of us can move in different circles. Mm-hmm. You move up and move down. And I think we've got a pretty good Middle Eastern population at the school I teach at. And it used to be, so you had the Muslim girls, Muslim boys. Muslim girls, generally speaking, very good students. Boys, male-dominated culture.
Yep.
Get away with murder at home. Mm-hmm. And never saw any of the parents at parent-teacher conferences. And you get a teacher new to the building and we're like, hey, how much of a turnout we're going to have for parent-teacher conferences? I was like, Muslims, you're not gonna see any of them, and then, word gets out, it's weird, the boys will start gravitating towards you, and then, cultural awareness.
Yeah.
You're not the ugly American trying to shake the mother's hand who's a conservative woman or whatever, you give them the hand on the heart or, whatever. Bam.
Yeah.
You got street cred, and all of a sudden, I'm not going to take credit for that. There's a lot of things going on, but the Muslim community knows that, the parents know, hey, I'm a good guy to talk to.
Yeah.
The kids know they can come talk to me. Everybody's got those skills from the military.
Right.
Hispanic culture, the recent immigrant culture. You've seen that. You've seen that in the military, regardless of what branch you were in. That, there's some machismo in certain cultures, and so the boys, and you're like, okay, that's what's going on, or whatever else. And other people learn that, but you got it in a concentrated dose,
Yeah.
As a young soldier or whatever you were from the moment you went in.
Yeah.
So those are the skills you're selling yourself on.
Right.
Maybe you picked up another language along the way. You know,
Real world.
Yeah. I mean, I had a couple girls for a while. You know, they'd moved in the neighborhood. They were Hmong, you know, from Vietnam. You know, good old Get Off My Lawn movie. You know, Gran Torino. That culture. You know, and I was like, wow, we've got girls at school. This is huge. You know. And everybody else is like, what? They're just this. And I'm like, no, you don't get this.
There's another layer of the onion.
Yeah. And so those are the skills you got.
Yeah.
Those are what you're bringing in. And then, you know, getting back to specifically to the history field, you teach to your strengths, you know?
Yeah.
Guess what? All history is military history. You know, race and gender relations, you know?
Yeah.
The military had racially desegregated schools in 1948 by executive order. Brown versus the Board of Education didn't happen until 1954.
Right.
And we still got problems in America in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got race and gender, you got political science, you got global issues. You know, you'd be amazed how many people out there in the world can't read a map right now.
Right.
You know, you give a kid a paper map and, well, what's this? I got GPS. What are you going to do when the batteries go out, man?
Yeah.
Anyway, man, we've been going a long time. I'm sorry about that.
No, man, an hour is good. We'll keep going. Yeah, keep going, man.
Yeah, I got a little bit more. You know, what to expect when you actually get out there teaching. You know, you got to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
You got to wear a lot of hats. Just like, you know, you did in the military. Sometimes you're coach.
Yep.
Sometimes you're a disciplinarian. Sometimes you're dad.
Yep.
Sometimes you're a social worker.
Yep.
You know, because just like when you had that one soldier where you're sitting there going, something ain't right. This guy's got radical behavior change all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Something's going on at home. Yeah. Well, you can't send him for a command-directed piss test in, you know, the school, but,
Right.
you know, like we would in the military as a first step. Oh, go piss him. Okay. But you know that there's a cause for every action.
Yeah.
You know, and this kid's coming in there raging every morning or smoking a bowl before he comes to school at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're like, what's going on in this kid's life that he's got to self-medicate at 6 o'clock in the morning just to get to school? And is he coming to school for an education, or is he coming to school because it's a safe place and he gets free food?
Yeah.
And he's got air conditioning and Wi-Fi and whatever, you know, and it's kind of like you say in the military, never walk away from a soldier with a problem.
Yeah.
You know, if you spend 5 minutes talking to a kid, you can fix a lot of their problems.
Can.
Now, you can't save everybody, you know, and that's where you got to be careful because you want to save everybody.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, you know, 5 minutes can make a difference in a kid's life. And that's the kind of stuff that comes naturally to you from your military experience that sets you apart, you know. And then you take care of kids and the word gets out, and then, you know, that builds that street cred for you.
Yeah.
You know, and
that rapport with kids, man, it's important.
Oh, definitely. Because if you don't have a relationship with them, you know, and they don't feel like they can talk to you,
They're never going to take you serious.
No, they're not going to take you serious, and they're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
You know, I tell the kids in my little welcome brief that they all forget about every year. They're like, "You were in the Army?" I'm like, "It was in my welcome brief." And they're like, we were sleeping. I'm like, "Yeah, I know." Well, not that they were sleeping, but that they're just not processing it. But then once they get to know you, you know, that's where you get the engagement. You know, and I tell the kids, I want you to know the why. I want you to know the why.
Yeah.
Because I tell them straight up in history, you know, I'll talk to parents or even other adults. I tell people I'm a history teacher, and they go, "Oh man, I hated history, you know, in high school. I hated that class." And you know what the first thing I tell them is? Because their teacher sucked.
Right.
And, you know, I said, your teacher sucked. That's why you hated history.
Yeah.
I don't suck, you know. And I want them, like you and I were talking earlier, you sit there and you go, hey, do you need to know, what happened with the Nebraska Land Grant Act to be a great American and educated citizen? Nope.
Right.
But let's use it as context,
Yeah.
and you tell them, this is why, why do we care about this? I want the kids to ask me, why do we care about this?
Yeah.
And you as a teacher need to be able to answer that. And if you tell them, you know what, you probably really don't need to know this to be a great citizen, then minimize that depth of instruction and
go on.
Yeah. Any history teacher worth his salt's going to spend way too much time on Rome and way too much time on World War II.
Yeah.
But you still got to cover the other stuff too. So, but if you're playing to your passion, regardless of what you're teaching, whether it's science, math, whatever, if you're playing to your passion, that passion is going to transfer to the kids.
Right.
And then they're actually going to want to come to your class and they're going to want to learn. And they're actually going to get educated versus instructed.
Right.
But you take care of the kids, they'll take care of you too. Just like you take care of the boss, he'll take care of you. I don't know. I'm thinking what else. Money. Not a lot of money in it.
Yeah.
But very fulfilling. And that's actually an ethical dilemma I have a lot of times. Because I have real good kids, give them scholarships and whatever else. They're going to be the first one in their family to go to college. Mm-hmm. And they say, OB, I think I want to be a teacher. And that is an ethical dilemma. Because you sit there and you say, one, that warms my heart. Mm-hmm. But two, I'm going to tell this kid that's got a full ride to go to college, it's going to be the first one in their family to go to college, to not be a teacher.
To go for something.
You can make more money working at UPS or, in the Midwest, we got Quick Trip, pretty good gas station. Mm-hmm. You make more money in a lot of jobs, with a high school diploma, money that you can support a family on, not just support yourself, but support a family on, than you can teaching.
Yeah.
But that's where you as a veteran have some assets that other people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 2 master's degrees going into 8 years teaching, and I make more on my VA disability check than I do from salary.
And you're doing this this is where your heart is.
It is where my heart is.
Yeah. Heart of a volunteer.
It is. And you as a veteran, you've got those things.
Yeah.
You got health care. I'm telling you, we've all had a VA hiccup somewhere along the way, but I'm pretty happy with it. And you know when I'm most happy with VA healthcare? When I got to sit at the back to school meetings with HR, that all the teachers are in the big auditorium, and they're talking about, this year's healthcare plan and how much it costs and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there going, holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. My healthcare my whole life, the Army and the VA has been government, and you know what? I'm still kicking.
Yeah.
I'm a little beat up, but,
Self-imposed.
Yeah, this is true. Poor decisions. Not poor decisions. Best job I ever had. But you'll be thankful for that. And you're like, wait a minute. You guys you're only taking home, $2,000 a month with a college education, working, your butt off. And you're telling me you got to pay $500 for insurance out of that?
Yeah.
I'm like, holy cow. I mean, and even my wife's, civilian, and we have to pay for, her health insurance. And I'm incredibly thankful that I don't have to pay for my health care.
Yeah.
Because that's a financial advantage you have,
Yeah, definitely.
Most places you get the summer off, People talk bad to you about that. It's like I said, you have to remind them when you're sitting on the porch. I'm like, I do have a job.
Yeah.
Have a nice day storming the castle.
Keep waving at them.
Yeah, keep waving at them. I'm like, I'm not a full-blown alcoholic. I just happen to be day drinking today, things like that. But in my case, it fits real good. God knows, unfortunately, a lot of us have probably lost some marriages or, some custody along the way. something as tied to our military service. I'm not going to say it's cause and effect relationship, but I get the summers off with my kids.
Yeah.
And could I be making a lot more money doing merc work or working somewhere else? Absolutely. But I get the summers off with my kids, and I love what I'm doing when I'm teaching, because those kids that I'm teaching are my kids too.
Yeah.
You are the surrogate parent to a lot of those kids, and you think about it on the math, depending on your school schedule, you are spending more time with those kids during their waking hours than their actual biological parents are.
Right.
And you're just as much of a parent. You sit there and you say, oh, well, it's a job. I shouldn't have to do that. Yeah, but I'm telling you, if you're thinking about that right now, again, maybe teaching's not for you.
Right.
Because you got to have the heart. You got to have the heart. I've taught boys how to shave, in the locker room after freaking school.
Yeah.
Because their dad's not around. They're being raised by their grandma.
Right.
And, you got to have that heart for those kids.
Yeah.
But, I don't know where I was going with that. But
you know what, Will? I think that you're talking about a lot of skills that are relatable, for veterans into teaching. But, I think the big thing is the calling to serve.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, for me, even coaching, it's like, you don't get paid very much money, and you're I mean, I don't know how many things I went and, ran summer weights that was coming out of my own pocket, my own time. No one's paying me for it, but it's not that you're getting like an extra yard. You're just getting more buy-in.
You're investing in people.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm giving my effort. I'm breaking myself here. And at some point, there's going to be some that are like, look at this guy, look at this clown, look at this clown shoe. I mean, I've had soldiers have been like, didn't respect me at all.
Yeah.
But the mass majority of them, they drank the Kool-Aid because they saw that you were invested in not just them and the process, but into their lives. Well, deeper than that, and
it's the willingness to go the extra mile. And again, I want to reinforce that this is not being a yes man. This is being a man that understands teamwork.
Yeah.
Understands buy-in to your organization.
Right.
It's like we used to say, if you're going to be a bricklayer, be the best damn bricklayer you could be. Why would you not want to be the best bricklayer you could be?
Absolutely.
If you're going to be, an infantry guy, why would you not want to be a ranger? Be the best freaking infantry guy that you can be.
That.
And so if you're going to be a teacher, get that buy-in.
Yeah.
And people get burned out, or people got things going on in their own lives, and because teachers are human too. But, you and me, the boss is like, hey, we need some volunteers come in Saturday morning, walk around the neighborhood, put flyers on the door about this thing we got going on at school. Some people, first thing out of their mouth is, how much are we getting paid?
Yeah.
Extra duty, or no, And I sit there and I go, I got anything going on Saturday morning? Nah. Can I give an hour of my time? Sure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way we think, like you said, putting in, do I have a reason not to do this?
Yeah.
Is it go help the team? Is it go help the kids? And, that's there. I was looking at my notes here. I got one more thing that I wanted to share. And somebody screwed up and let me start talking to new teachers at the district level a couple of years ago for just kind of prepping them. And what I tell them is invest in the community where you're going to teach. And what I mean by that is know the area.
Yeah.
Because those kids live there. Most teachers live geographically outside their district. I mean, I do too. It happens.
You're like right on the edge of it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on the edge.
Yeah. But, especially if you're teaching in the city, a lot of you, probably live in the suburbs and then you commute into the city. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. But don't get in that muscle memory where you pull into the parking lot, you walk into the building, end of the day, you walk out of the building, you get back in your car and you drive straight home.
Yeah.
Drive around the neighbor. Go eat at the restaurant where the kids work.
Yeah.
Now, be careful if you got a kid there that, might be the spit in the food kid, but,
Right.
that's more few and far between because you're visible in the community. The kids know that you eat at that restaurant, or the kids are always sneaking food in from this one place down the street. And you're like, hey, what's up with that place? Oh, man, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Go there. If you're in a city environment, even if you're not a big church-going person, there's usually every flavor of religion somewhere in that school district. Even if that's not your church or your parish or whatever, synagogue or mosque or whatever, show up once in a while. Show your face there because the parents are going to see you. The kids are going to see you. They're going to know that you're in the community. The kids say, hey, you're cultivated informants. Say, hey, we're going to have a big fight.
Cultivating informants.
Also known as snitches.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ability to cultivate a snitch is when you know you've arrived as a teacher. You got if you got if you got enough street cred that you've been able to cultivate your own informants and stolen cell phone retrieval squad, you've arrived.
Oh yeah.
But know where that park is.
Yeah.
And drive through the neighborhood.
We did that yesterday.
Yeah,
we
we did.
pointing out students' houses and like the park you were talking about. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're going to get a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
Because if it's the end of the month and your kid ain't there and hasn't been there for a few days, they're probably getting evicted.
Yeah.
And they're moving. If you're driving into work in the morning and it smells like burning trash, because we all know what burning trash smells like.
Right.
Somebody's house burned down.
Yeah.
Or that kid's got rage, and it's just blocking everything out. And then you drive through the neighborhood and he's got rage because he's got a blue tarp over his house and his mom's stoned.
Yeah.
Over the roof of his house, that is. But that helps, understand. It's like the military. Understand your operational environment. Understand
your environment, yeah.
Know what's going on, Anyway, I don't know. Anything pop up in your mind that you want to ask me about, or something that we think the guys listening to this might get something out of?
All I can say is my hat's off to you, brother. Here's the thing. You've had a lot of veterans out there that are dying to hear you talk about anything on that. No.
Hold on. Me too much credit, man.
Hold on. Now, here's the thing. We talked about that. The link we have with senior NCOs and officers when we were young.
Yeah.
And how connected we are to them. And we are the same way to them. The advice that we gave that got them through tough times in their life. Like you said, their parents weren't around. They were, young men in a new world. And you were the anchor that got them through, hard times in their lives. The hardest time they've ever had towards that time. And we talked about that, the prefrontal cortex, it's still developing.
Yeah.
And you locked yourself in there. And that's another thing about bringing veterans on here, that they're connected to others.
Yeah.
And it changes.
Yeah, then that's why I go back to saying, for all the evils of social media, I am thankful for it every day because you don't have to be alone.
Right.
You may be the only vet out there, but, this is what we're talking about. Who are the veterans in your neighborhood? Yeah. There's other guys out there, and if there's not, you got Facebook, man.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it the other day. If somebody's calling me in the middle of the night, they're in a crisis.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer the phone, and it's happened, and I know that if I'm having a meltdown in the middle of the night and got to talk to somebody, I can call you. I know you're going to pick up.
Yeah.
And everybody's out there. There's guys out there. We watch each other, and, not cultivating an us versus them mentality, but in a certain way, there's a lot of people in the country that have the imperative response. Thank you for your service. And you're like, yeah, thanks for my service. Can I have a job? And they're like, oh, yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like trying to get your buddy to teach you how to drive stick on their car. It's like, hey, man, you teach me how to drive stick? Yeah, sure. But not on my car.
Right.
Well, thank you for your service. I hope you found a job.
Yeah.
Oh, how about giving me a job?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, vets watch out for vets. And that's what we got to keep doing. And hopefully somebody got something out of this.
Yeah.
Me rambling on. And, and those of you that heard my voice way too much over the years, I apologize. But, remember the safety brief, so it'll be okay.
Yeah. Will, thank you for coming on the show, man. And hey, like I said, let's do it again. If you got more life experiences that you think that veterans can get stuff from, or after you're talking to veterans and new topics come up, let's get on here, man. You've got a good podcast voice.
Well, I warmed up to it. You dragged me into this kicking and screaming, but I warmed up to it, and maybe I'd be willing to do that. And all our mutual friends or friends of friends out there, if you got something you want me to ramble about, Chris can probably talk me into doing this again. So thanks a lot.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming on the show today, Will. And hey, everybody, thanks for listening to Heart of a Volunteer. This has been your Monday Mandatory Motivation, episode 007. Hey, if you're not motivated, folks, by seeing what it looks like out there for another job, another career, something that you can put your heart into and actually make, see the changes that you're making, see your influence and feel it, maybe teaching is what you need to do. But hey, reach out to Will if you got any questions about teaching. He's more than willing to help you out. And stay safe out there. Look out for each other, and like, share, and comment. Hey, if you're still here, this is Heart of Volunteer Veterans Podcast, copyright 2019.